Clay, as you were going through all the big changes at BT, was there anything that came at you from a blind spot that you weren't anticipating having to address, but then suddenly you had to turn around and tackle it and deal with it?
Yeah, I think probably the thing that caught us off guard was how long it took in terms of reinforcement with the individuals for it really to sink in, right? Which is, I think, reinforces Simon's point about keep it simple, have it be 3 things, and repeat them over and over again, which at some level I think Quip does, right? I mean, more than some level. And the fact that the message has been around long enough, I think, actually is why it's sinking in to such a great degree. But you got to bring the people with you.
Yeah. Richard?
Yeah, I think 2 things, really. You don't change, then everything is fixed and you stop. You know, change is an ongoing process. And if you work for a company like GE Healthcare, you know, you really get that. You know that this is an evolution. We're going to keep on changing as the market changes, as the, you know, the landscape changes. We are going to keep on evolving, and we need to do that to thrive. So that's a sort of a message that's instilled in everybody. We're not going to change, it's done. We're going to keep on changing and adapting. I think the other thing is we've got to be careful of is that, you know, we could potentially have, you know, some very senior managers in the NHS who come here, listen to Jim, listen to Andrew Lansley yesterday, and really get it and get what needs to be done, and then go back to their PCT or their SHA, and they really get it, but they've really got to make sure that that message you know, goes down all the way through the ranks through everybody, and so that everybody is bought in and really gets it from top to bottom. So I think as managers in the NHS, really needing to ensure that you're bringing your people with you. They understand the change. They're not frightened of the change. They're excited by it. So easy to say, harder to do, I know, but yeah.
Jackie, any big tip from your experience?
Not really. I think it's been said. I mean, the constant in Medtronic is change. We change. We're very agile. We evolve all the time. I think it is a cultural thing. And I think the most important thing is to have that vision and to make sure that every single person in your organisation goes on the journey with you.
Okay, well, yes, lady at the back there, and then the gentleman just here, and then the gentleman here.
Hello, my name's Tracy Dale. I'm from NHS North Yorkshire in York. My question really is for Jim, which is about how do we safeguard...
It's not what I did with all the money, is it, in York?
Absolutely. How do we safeguard the quality and we don't move into the mentality of just slash and burn?
Yeah, and it's interesting, I was just doing an interview for the HSJ where they were rightly pressing me on that point, and I think you could legitimately look at some things that you're beginning to see and wonder where the cue went. In some people's actions as the pressure comes on. And we've been reflecting over the last week about how we re-emphasize that through the whole programme, so the messaging, but also how we do some proper measurement of, a good example is staffing change. So we're about to go through a period where some difficult changes in the numbers of staff, including clinical staff, kind of are more publicly aware as we try and provide some cover for people to do the things they need to do. But there is no point saying it's a good thing to have, you know, an N% small reduction in clinical staff if that doesn't discriminate between Redline and redesign. And so we want to create some tools that help people measure it. We want to create some incentives and sanctions, and we want to create a very a lens to create public focus on it. That actually we think more public awareness may be a good thing, although it will bring us problems. The thing that will bring this into sharp relief is the Francis 2 public inquiry into mid-staffs. I mean, that is going to locate at the heart of this change, my guess would be, some very deep, long-term messages about how we should manage that. Because in my reading of the mid-staff, as I read the mid-staff's evidence, it's everything you wouldn't want to happen in culture in action, and it's a stark reminder of where you can go if you lose control of the issue you're talking about. It's a great question.
Jim, could better use of technology, making the right choices with the new technology that's coming up, actually help to maintain the quality level? Could it address the concerns that lady's expressed?
I'd put it more strongly than that. You can't do the equation without the use of technology. Yeah. So it's fantastic, but as we enter quite a febrile period in terms of change and politics, not just in the NHS but more widely, Some of these are choices, as has often been the case, between boxes and jobs. And some of that will play out in quite complex ways as colleagues whose job it is to protect the interests of, trade union colleagues whose job it is to protect the interests of their members. Some of those tensions will be played out pretty directly, I think.
Yeah. Okay, yes, the gentleman there, and then I think there was a gentleman at the front. Yep.
Nicholas Peters, I'm a clinician scientist at Imperial College London. So it's very interesting that last point that was made about speed of change and the speed of changes that are happening with the financial pressures and the need to innovate versus the speed with which the innovations can actually be implemented. And there is potentially something of a mismatch there. One of the things that we learned in this conference is how much we have to learn from other sectors, and other sectors will innovate, and then providing they have the right measurement tools and collect data, they can real time and on the job measure the effects of the innovation. Now there are a lot of technologies here that on the face of them carry very little risk associated with them, arguably even no risk. And they can be looked at, and they can be looked at by various different individuals throughout healthcare provision, and everyone can be agreed that there appears to be no risk, no downside, or at least acceptable risk, but clearly has the potential to make a difference. The fear is, of course, that rather than just start using them tomorrow and collect data to make sure that what they promise is actually happening, the fear is that if you tried to do that, someone within the organization would turn around and say, actually you can't do that. You've got to do it in 10,000 patients under controlled conditions. Come back to us, show us the data, and in 3 years' time, we'll start the process of approval, and in 5 years' time, we'll give you the green light. Now, there is no life after death, and before we are dead in the water, we have to turn around that situation. Now, I have a particular technology in mind that 2 people on this stage have referred to in their talks at this meeting, and I'd be very interested to know how we're going to overcome this issue of avoiding death while we're all waiting for the innovation. Jim?
Jim, that's put the meat on the question. You've already answered in one way.
And Nick's a fantastic clinical leader of innovation. Well, I agree, and I do think it's a I'm sort of becoming a slight obsessive here. It's a bit of a multi-headed conspiracy. The thing about evidence is that, so when I talked to other industry leaders about how they deliver quality and value, they said to me, what are you doing to start off with? I said, I'm collecting the evidence about what works. And they said, why are you doing that? Aren't you paid to decide and make stuff happen? Which I thought was an interesting challenge. And the reason we collected the evidence was that in our culture, you can't get much through without some level of evidence. Now, you talk about a room in which everybody agrees it's a benefit. I might be unlucky, Nick, but I've never been in that room. I've been in rooms where everybody knows what you say is true, but because it conflicts with their interests, they use evidence as a tool, managerially, clinically, either not enough or it's not complete, to argue against or to delay its adoption.